Center here in Denver, Colorado. It wasn't just a big night of fight. It was a big night of memorable moments.
Conor McGregor with us here in Denver, Colorado. Left hand from Rockhold. Right hand, right back from Mike Perry. Can I get a face-off with Conor McGregor, man?
It's an incredible setup here, incredible matchmaking, incredible storytelling. Oh, you had to come here. All these fighters that step in here, warriors, and all have my respect. And I'm into this game, yeah. We'll be into this, yeah.
And we are live here in the Maverick Center here in Salt Lake City. What a night. It is going to be historic indeed for BKFC 56.
Whoever's the king of violence right here, this is going to be a great fight. Perry on the top. Right hand from Mike Perry. Double jab. Who's the king of violence? I am!
Combat fighting in its purest form, bare knuckle fighting in the city of angels.
We've got the biggest announcement in the BKFC history we're about to make, so let's make that announcement.
What's up, Knucklemania? The notorious Conor McGregor here. Ladies and gentlemen, the huge announcement that I have for you today. Conor McGregor, myself, and McGregor Sports and Entertainment is now an owner of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. Welcome to the big leagues. David Feldman, baby, we did it.
He's now an owner of BKFC with us, and we're going to take this motherfucking thing all the way to the top now.
Welcome to hour number 2, live right here on the opening day of this new week. It's a Monday on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie. I am Ben. 2 more hours to go, live right here on TEL. We will talk a lot of football in this second hour because preseason all around the National Football League after the Hall of Fame game on Thursday night in Canton, Ohio, will be underway. A doubleheader on Thursday. The greatest preseason team we have ever seen in the history of the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens, start their preseason action on Friday against Donnie's Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of football in store, plenty more Olympic conversation here in hour 2 as well.
Yeah, it was just because we didn't get the chance to talk, Ben, on Friday morning, but just watching the kickoffs of how they actually are playing out now in preseason, you got a small little glimpse of what's going to happen. Now we get full gas where everybody's going to be playing multiple kick returns in multiple games every single night. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch to see because I'm wondering how many touchdowns we are going to get to see kick returns this year. And could it be an all-time high?
Yeah.
Because I got a feeling, man, we are going to get, and the thing I was asking on the radio, Ben, was this one. Are we going to get over, let's just say 18 weeks of play? We're going to get at least 18 kick return touchdowns this year. Like if the average is, let's just say 9 out of every 10 kickoffs is going to be returned, that's astronomically higher than what we saw the past couple of years. I do think we get at least 1 kick return for a touchdown average per weekend here as we watch it play out. But again, as you're talking about this week, we'll get to see a lot more preseason games and a lot more ways that we're going to be able to watch and see how some of these teams handle the kickoffs.
That would be a very fun special on the FanDuel Sportsbook if an over-under was set for that type of thing, because I enjoyed the new NFL kickoff. It will be something that we have to balance in our minds because of what has happened to the kickoff over the last 2 decades in the National Football League. But I do think it is a fun component to bring back to the game. You hear head coaches all the time, all 3 phases, man, each individually important for the entire whole, offense, defense, special teams, but it really hasn't been all that much for special teams in the kicking game. Sure, to score field goals, to make points that way, no doubt about it. Punting, yes, certainly a huge factor. Definitely in my heart. But now kickoffs, I think, are going to be back. Donnie, I like the thought there. Let's get you set for what we are going to see now in Olympic basketball in the Paris Olympic Games. We are on to the knockout stages in both the men's and women's basketball tournaments. Here are the final 8 over in Paris in the men's tournament. All 4 of these games, a quadruple header tomorrow, starting bright and early around 5:30 a.m. Eastern time here stateside. Australia and Serbia. The Serbians now a bigger favorite in this matchup. The U.S. will be in the nightcap in Paris, the afternoon cap here, a little bit after 3 p.m. Eastern time. 26.5-point favorite for the United States against Brazil. Germany advances. So does Greece, who was winless in its opening 2 games with Giannis Antetokounmpo. In Canada, in France, in an absolute battle. That really highlights the marquee for the host nation.
Yeah, but you're taking a look now at Team USA. Now the fun begins because the knockout stage is here. You have one bad game, you could be sent home, you don't get a medal. That certainly would be embarrassing, particularly if they don't win an Olympic gold medal. But now we're seeing Steve Kerr start to be like a college football coach at this point. Old school coaches like Nick Saban, Joe Paterno, Lou Holtz. They would tell their teams on Monday morning, like, I don't even know how you're going to compete. Like Lou Holtz used to do it repeatedly. Air Force is coming to play Notre Dame. These kids are so disciplined. I don't think we can beat this football program. The reason I bring it up is I saw Steve Kerr starting to let out like, man, we're worried about the physicality and athletic ability of Brazil here. You're close to 30-point favorites. You should easily roll. But I like the gamesmanship to say, let's not get caught off guard. Let's not take it too easily. Yes, it is survive and advance, but nobody wants to be in a close game in the fourth quarter. Put away Brazil. But I do find it funny, before I just saw that spread at 26.5, how Team USA is saying they're worried about what Brazil brings to the table. They should easily roll at this point. But now I like it because it gets ramped up. All 4 quarters matter. You know, you're not worried about, hey, let me make sure I get Tyrese Halliburton, Joel Embiid, or Jason Tatum their minutes in this game. The better units are going to play the majority of the game, and I'm going to like to see that.
Yeah, absolutely so. The Americans have been dominant. You see the point differential that we will put on display here throughout Group C action. A perfect 3-0 record. They have scored on average nearly 106 points. They have only given up around 84. The Americans have been dominant in their play so far. They did not cover against South Sudan. Donnie, do you know what the closing number was Saturday night against Puerto Rico? The Americans won by 21. Do you know what the spread was, perchance? I can also look it up.
No, I didn't see the closing one. I know it was 30 points in that range, though, because of that, hey, we got to beat them by as many points as we can. I know it was around 30.
So that would mean the Americans just 1-2 against the number. But I guess if you're taking the good component of it, they covered against their stiffest competition, Nikola Jokic and the Serbians, in the Olympic opener with their largest margin of victory, winning by 26. Now you are in to the knockout stage. We will talk about the Americans' game against the Brazilians in just a moment, but the United States remains a hefty gold medal favorite at minus 550. But now 2 teams outside of the U.S. now in the final 8 into 3 digits. Canada plus 750, a tough one against France on Tuesday afternoon in the knockout stages. In Germany, dominant in group action as well. I told you late last week the Germans were plus 130 to see the medal stand in the Olympic basketball tournament. Now minus 192, the third best number behind the Americans and the Canadians. And Germany, third best price to win a gold medal at plus 850.
Yeah, it's good. Again, these 2 teams, and keep in mind, when I say 2 teams, let's just focus on Canada and Germany. They're the ones that are going to give the U.S. a stress test. Now, when we're taking a look at what needs to happen, as long as Team USA just doesn't go ice cold and you have Germany and or Canada get extremely hot from 3-point range, because as we know, it's the ultimate equalizer. Also keep in mind, I know I've talked about this in the past. It's not 3 games, best of 5, best of 7 here. It's a 1-game playoff. And also in NBA action, it's, 12-minute quarters all the way through. It's only 10-minute quarters. So the margin for error slips up a little bit, where the opposing team's like, we only have to play for a fraction of the time that typical like an NBA game would be or an NBA series would be. Just be careful, because if another team shoots 50% from 3-point range, which those 2 teams can do, that means Team USA might be in a bit of trouble. We're not expecting, which is why they're still a minus 550 favorite. But in the knockout stages, anything can happen in a shortened game like the Olympics plays at 10-minute quarters. We'll see what happens there. I don't think anything is going to, but it should be fun to watch it play out.
Again, LeBron James and Team USA, a 26.5-point favorite against the Brazilians. Plus 106, the number on the King, to win the basketball MVP at the Olympic Games. Kevin Durant, though, who has been sensational in terms of his scoring output and who has scored the most points for Team USA in Olympic competition, plus 360. Those are the odds as of this moment. 26.5-point spread for Team USA tomorrow against Brazil. It is the fourth and final game of the quadruple header tomorrow. 26.5-point spread. You see the total currently at 185 and a hook. I guess the question, Donnie, is not, is the United States about to be upset in a way we have hardly ever seen in international Olympic competition? But maybe better yet, can the Americans cover as a 26.5-point favorite?
You know, and again, if I'm just, forget about the X's and O's of the game, Ben, right? You're taking a look against Puerto Rico. It did sort of make sense where Team USA was telling us ahead of time, we have to win by as many points as possible. Puerto Rico knows that. So it's not going to be embarrassing when we're still trying to flex on them if we're up 35 points late in that game. Now, it turns out they weren't able to do that and Puerto Rico covered the spread. But I do look at that 26.5 against Brazil. If you're up, 20 points with 5 minutes to go, are you pressing it down the needle and saying, let's just go full blast and put some of our players in bad predicaments? Like, no, I don't think that's the case. So without actually handicapping each team, I look at the 26.5 and go, I'm more likely to take the points than lay the points in this game, Ben.
I'm also leaning under 185 and a hook. Point differential no longer matters outside of group action. And we saw those flurries when the game seemed out of the balance. Now we'll talk about the NFL up next.
Hopefully they learned their lesson. Hey, this ain't the NBA, bro. You don't have 6 fouls, and they will check you on this stuff. And Brooks has a reputation coming into this. You can tell the refs are watching them, and they were on him all the time.
This was 10, 12 years ago. Canada playing Greece with that type of lead if they had. They probably would have mentally crumbled and lost that game to Greece by 3 or 4 points in the final minute of that ball game.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Try and set the stage for what should be a great year of NFL action.
There's a handful of teams that potentially can compete for a Super Bowl championship.
Confusion and uncertainty this year more than some in the past.
This team looks like it's ready to make a move, but we just don't know if it's bad or good this year.
J.J. McCarthy is eventually going to take over, but it's a no-lose situation for them.
I mean, they suck. They were 7-10.
Only on SportsGrid.
That race for the Cy Young, pretty much as equally compelling and intriguing as the race for the wild card spots in the National League.
And also keep in mind, this team doesn't pitch the entire season, so his ERA gets affected much, much more if he has a poor outing than, let's just say, Chris Sale or Zach Wheeler that's been there all season long. This would be a fun one to watch it play out, but the big loser last night were the Phillies and Zach Wheeler.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Their coach has a personality that is New York City. Tough, grinding, defensive, no holds barred. We muck this game up and we make you play it our way. And Tibbs has been rewarded, and he should be rewarded for what he's done with the Knicks.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Some NFL news and notes over the weekend as we enter a week of preseason action in full for all 32 NFL clubs around the league. The Hall of Fame game is great, but it's really an exhibition match. Now we dive into the preseason even more so, where all 32 teams will begin their first of 3 preseason games as training camp continues on. And over the weekend, Donnie, some contract news for one of the NFL's very best, ranked atop the top 100 in the National Football League by his peers as the best player in the NFL. Tyreek Hill gets a restructured deal with Miami. Still a 3-year deal worth $90 million, but just adds in more guaranteed money over the lifetime of his contract extension. That is now this 4-year deal, $106.5 million. Tyreek Hill is one of 4 wide receivers currently in the National Football League that makes more than $30 million per year. That stays the way in the annual average salary, but of course the up in terms of his guaranteed money in that contract with the Finns.
I mean, you want to talk about a guy that deserves it. It's Tyreek Hill, the most electric wide receiver today in football, and a guy that wasn't even up for a contract, gets an extension and a rework number and a lot more money in his pocket. See, sometimes owners are smart. Before the season, reward your best football players because you will get maximum effort, which then throws that little bit of a wrinkle into what's going on with Brandon Ayuk out in San Francisco, what's happening with CeeDee Lamb down in Dallas, and of course the travesty that's taking place in front of our eyes for the Cincinnati Bengals. Every second you wait, other guys are going to reset that market, therefore driving that price higher. Does anybody look at this Tyreek Hill deal and say, that's ridiculous, the Miami Dolphins gave him that deal? Like, no, he's the best at his position. Pay him accordingly to keep him happy. It's what good ownership groups do and good front offices do. You don't haggle with your best players. You know, you haggle with, Ben, the 55th guy on the roster that's going to make $1.1 million. You bring him in and say, I'm going to cut you unless you take a $200,000 pay cut. And if he says no, you cut him and nobody cares. You don't want to mess with your top talent here. I love when teams take care of him. Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins came to an agreement. Fantastic. We're not worried about anything this season. You got your wide receivers paid, your quarterback paid. They're looking to have a good season now.
Yeah, absolutely so, Donnie. I think it's a great point that you bring up because when you look at Tyreek Hill, he is maybe the best in the game alongside Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase. And there should be that reward for performance, but also the projection of continuing to be one of the best players in the National Football League and one of the integral pieces of your franchise in terms of success. And Tyreek Hill is certainly that. He is the favorite right now to lead the NFL in receiving yards this year at 6-1. He is $1.50 in front of Justin Jefferson. That plus 650 number has now become 6-1. He's also the favorite to have the most receiving touchdowns in the NFL at a 10-1 number. So you might be saying lead in both. 2 of the 3 legs of the Triple Crown, if you will, most receptions, receiving yards, and receiving scores. It's what he did last year. 1,799 yards to lead all the National Football League, 13 receiving scores. And Tua Tagovailoa was fully healthy. Why do I bring that up? Because 1,375 in a hook might seem steep, but is it enough for the season-long receiving yards number on Tyreek Hill? DRS, more than 1,700 receiving yards in each of his first 2 years with the Dolphins. And in 2022, Tua's health was a key consideration, and Tyreek Hill still broke through that number in a large way. I would bet the over on 1,375 and a hook.
Why wouldn't you at this point here? What gives you the reason they're not going to go over that? And also, you got Tua Tagovailoa, who's healthy now. Also, when you take even the quarterback position, Tua doesn't have to go into this season with the worries of, let me just make sure I can stay healthy. He can play with his, as talented as he wants to be, as aggressive he wants to be. Now, granted, he's not playing to get hurt. That's not what I'm saying here. But you sort of take away that I have my financial security for my family now. Let's go out and win and not worry about anything else. You know what Waddle's saying? The same exact thing because he got paid. You know what Tyreek Hill saying? The same exact thing because he got paid. I just love when you have the vibes that start out this good where everybody is happy and the only focus you have now is on football. It usually works out in your favor by the end of the season. Like, what happens if you went into the season? Hey, you know what? I don't think we can come to an agreement with Tua. You make a lot of money at the wide receiver position right now, Tyreek. We're going to worry about you next year. And Waddle, you're up for an extension, but we don't have to give that to you now. How would it look for the Miami Dolphins? Instead, they took care of all of their top talent and said, let's go out and win a Super Bowl this year. That's how you handle your business.
And again, they extend Tua Tagovailoa. They at least restructure the deal. It was not an extension for Tyreek Hill to pay him more money and more guaranteed money as well. The Dolphins' win total is 9.5. The over has the slight bit of juice. Miami is a favorite right now to see the AFC postseason for a second consecutive year. The Dolphins have not won a playoff game since the year 2000, nearly 2.5 decades. That is the task that Mike McDaniel, the head coach, of course, of this Dolphins franchise, has embraced. Maybe that changes this year in 2024. We got word from Dan Quinn over the weekend in his first year as Washington's head coach that number 2 overall pick in the rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels, will play in the team's first preseason game on Saturday in MetLife against the New York Jets. Of course, that was expected, but some of that is now more excitement for Washington, that we are going to see Jaden Daniels out there on the field. We also anticipate seeing Caleb Williams in the Bears' first true preseason game this weekend as well.
Yeah, these rooks will all get on the field. It is more exciting to get in that first game. Now, also keep in mind the Chicago Bears technically are going to play more preseason games. So, waiting Caleb Williams one more week to get him out there, he's going to be just fine as well. But the excitement does build when you see these talented rookies get off the field, even if it is just a snapshot, Ben. 1 or 2 series, you get to see the arm strength out here. They're not game planning. They certainly don't want to get him hurt and say, hey, Jaden, drop back 13 times in the first quarter, run 6 times. Let's see how explosive you are. You're just looking to get that first audition out of the way, get all the butterflies done. You're officially a professional football player the minute you take that snap, and away you go.
The Commanders a 3-point favorite on the road in East Rutherford against the Jets on Saturday. Caleb Williams is the favorite to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year hardware at plus 135. Daniels tied for the second best price alongside Marvin Harrison Jr., both at plus 650. We'll have more of a rookie quarterback conversation to start off hour number 3. Preseason breakdown, kind of. Next.
Hopefully they learned their lesson. Hey, this ain't the NBA, bro. You don't have 6 fouls, and they will check you on this stuff. And Brooks has a reputation coming into this. You can tell the refs are watching them, and they were on him all the time.
This was 10, 12 years ago. Canada playing Greece with that type of lead that they had. They probably would have mentally crumbled and lost that game to Greece by 3 or 4 points in the final minute of that ball game.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Try and set the stage for what should be a great year of NFL action.
There's a handful of teams that potentially can compete for a Super Bowl championship.
Confusion and uncertainty this year more than some in the past.
This team looks like it's ready to make a move, but we just don't know if it's bad or good this year.
J.J. McCarthy is eventually going to take over, but it's a no-lose situation for them.
I mean, they suck. They were 7-10.
Only on SportsGrid.
That race for the Cy Young, pretty much as equally compelling and intriguing as the race for the wild card spots in the National League.
And also keep in mind, this team doesn't pitch the entire season, so his ERA gets affected much, much more if he has a poor outing than, let's just say, Chris Sale or Zach Wheeler that's been there all season long. This would be a fun one to watch it play out, but the big loser last night were the Phillies and Zach Wheeler.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Their coach has a personality that is New York City. Tough, grinding, defensive, no holds barred. We muck this game up and we make you play it our way. And Tibbs has been rewarded. And he should be rewarded for what he's done with the Knicks.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
It is time for preseason football this week in the National Football League. A doubleheader of action on Thursday, a tripleheader of games on Friday. Now, we say this with the caveat. Is it hard to handicap the preseason? Yes, of course. Are there advantages and edges out there according to the odds makers? I think so, DRS. I've had a pretty good run the last few preseasons in terms of looking at a team's roster, looking at a mentality for a young up-and-coming team, and trying to find those edges in the numbers in terms of NFL preseason betting, at least week number 1. So here is the doubleheader on Thursday night. In New England, the Patriots, as a 3.5-point favorite, play host to the Carolina Panthers. In New York, at MetLife, the Giants will host the Detroit Lions. As you can see, both of the home teams are booked as more than a field goal favorite. If these games were to take place during the regular season, it would be the complete opposite. Even Carolina, who of course was atrocious at a 2-win football team a year ago, but even if Carolina were to face off against the Patriots this year, the Panthers might even be a slight road money line favorite. Different, though, in preseason action.
Yeah, I am looking forward to that Panthers game because anytime you have a new regime, like obviously the Panthers have, and certainly in like a tough pill to swallow last year, we draft number 1 overall. The number 2 quarterback plays so much better than your number 1. There's a lot to gain here in the preseason just for expectations from a general manager's position and also from a fan position. But also that New England Patriots game where they're at home, like the early returns on Drake May from what I'm reading here. And again, I haven't watched any practice tape or even delve into it. Like like the returns are awful right now. Like Jacoby Brissett might as well just be the franchise guy from what we're seeing in practice out of Drake May. So you do want to see him get out there and maybe have a little bit of success to sort of build off what you've seen, because so many times NFL franchises, they'll try to lie to you a lot like, hey, he's coming along perfectly. We like exactly where he's at. But now with the advent of social media where beat writers are in there tweeting every single thing that's happening at practice, it looks like Drake May can't even complete a pass. And when he does, it's to the opposite team here, meaning a pick six going the opposite direction. Lions and Giants, who knows what we're going to see there. By the way, are we going to see Daniel Jones game number 1? Has that been determined yet at this point? Because typically when you're working your way back from injury, you want to get the guy out there sooner than possible. But then again, does it actually make sense to run Daniel Jones out, even if he has been cleared for contact? That's going to be an interesting one to play out. But I'm with you on that. You just see the favorites because they're at home. You'll see how it plays out. But yes, the Lions and the Giants, regular season game, completely flip. Maybe in Lions like -5.5 or 6 on the road against the Giants.
You know, Donnie, I think it's interesting about Daniel Jones. There is coaching mentality to the new preseason. There's also the new structure of preseason football, only 3 games. There was at least a standard operating procedure, perhaps, that for a long time in the 4-game slate, you wouldn't see your starters game 1. They might play a couple of series in game 2, maybe most of the opening quarter, heck, maybe even most of the first half in game 3. And they wouldn't play in game 4. Not sure if there's been any confirmation on Daniel Jones as of this moment, but of course has been there for all of training camp, cleared for contact, coming back from the torn ACL a year ago. I'm already going to bet Carolina +3.5 to the opposite end of the coin for Drake May. The reports out of training camp for the Panthers is that Bryce Young is looking ready to go under Dave Canales. I expect to see Bryce Young looking for a bounce-back season after a bad rookie campaign, but in a tumultuous situation in Charlotte. I'll take the 3.5 with Carolina right here from the jump. Let's get to the 3 games on Friday. And Donnie, when you talk preseason football, there is no more dominant side than that of the Baltimore Ravens under John Harbaugh. A 24-game preseason win streak that dates back to the 2016 season. A field goal favorite against Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's almost, you look at that and you say to yourself, like, the Ravens always win. Why is that only a 3-point line? And also, if you are a team like the Ravens that really says, we want to win games in the preseason, which ones do you usually probably feel the most confident? Is game number 1, because most NFL teams could care less about that one. The more interesting one now with only 3 games is game number 2, and then you would figure the Ravens would win a game in game number 3. But if we are looking, Lamar Jackson's not going to play in this game. Now, here's the difference. In the past, like, the Ravens have like the perfect, 3 to 4 quarterbacks on the bench for preseason. Guys that have some NFL experience that are ultimately talented outside of the pocket. Are we going to get that same thing this year? Josh Johnson, a little bit older quarterback, as we know. Devin Leary, who obviously isn't that same cut from the mold, Lamar Jackson, and Emory Jones. So this is one to watch where maybe they're not as astute at the quarterback position backup-wise as they used to be in the previous years. Something to watch in this preseason.
That 24-game win streak snapped last year for the Flock, but still, it is the mentality under Harbaugh. The Steelers also a perfect 3-0 last preseason. Something to pay attention to or on the early line next.
Hopefully they learned their lesson. Hey, this ain't the NBA, bro. You don't have 6 fouls, and they will check you on this stuff. And Brooks has a reputation coming into this. You can tell the refs are watching them, and they were on him all the time.
This was 10, 12 years ago. Canada playing Greece with that type of lead that they had. They probably would have mentally crumbled and lost that game to Greece by 3 or 4 points in the final minute of that ball game.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Try and set the stage for what should be a great year of NFL action.
There's a handful of teams that potentially can compete for a Super Bowl championship.
Confusion and uncertainty this year more than some in the past.
This team looks like it's ready to make a move, but we just don't know if it's bad or good this year.
J.J. McCarthy is eventually going to take over, but it's like it's a no-lose situation for them.
I mean, they suck. They were 7-10.
Only on SportsGrid.
That race for the Cy Young, pretty much as equally compelling and intriguing as the race for the wild card spots in the National League.
And also keep in mind, this team doesn't pitch the entire season, so his ERA gets affected much, much more if he has a poor outing than, let's just say, Chris Sale or Zach Wheeler that's been there all season long. This would be a fun one to watch it play out, but the big loser last night were the Phillies and Zach Wheeler.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Their coach has a personality that is New York City. Tough, grinding, defensive, no holds barred. We muck this game up and we make you play it our way. And Tibbs has been rewarded. And he should be rewarded for what he's done with the Knicks.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
An Olympic assessment looking back on the weekend in Paris and setting up the final 4 week of the Summer Games in 2024. Live right here on this Monday with Sporting News' Carlin Gay to get you set with everything you need to know around the 33rd Olympiad. Carlin, we appreciate the time as always. Thank you for being here once again on the Early Line.
Appreciate you guys having me, and I must say maybe your producer Joe's a little annoyed at me because we had a confusion behind scenes about the times and everything. He sent me like 4 eye roll emojis, a little sassy response in my opinion. So you guys got to get it right.
Listen,
yeah,
that's unacceptable. Unacceptable out of our producer. The guest always comes first. Carlin, we appreciate the time. And there will be a stern conversation held by Donnie Rightside and myself with our producer, Joe Frizo. It's like one of those player-only meetings. We'll make sure it's handled internally here, Carlin, on the SportsGrid network. So we are on in the Olympic basketball tournaments, both on the men's and women's side, to the knockout stages. And as expected, Team USA in both out in front. In the women's tournament, Team USA a perfect 3-0 in group action with its closest game of the 3 in group play yesterday against Germany, but still a 19-point win, 87-68. Carlin, what have you liked most about Team USA in women's basketball throughout group play so far?
Listen, they make it look easy, right? Like the win streak is like 1,000,000 right now. They haven't lost in Olympic Games. That they're going to continue that win streak here in the quarterfinals once we get there. But what's really impressive is that they were in the group of death, right? Like Germany is no joke on the world stage. Belgium is no joke on the world stage. And Japan plays such a different style from everybody else that you have to game plan for them. They shoot a ton of threes. They actually, guys, took more threes than twos in the entire tournament. It was incredible to see them play that way up and down the floor. So this is the group of death, and they were able to go through relatively unscathed. Like they lost maybe a quarter in that, and that was to Germany by 1 point. So this is a team that is well-oiled. They've been together. They know how each other play, and they're all coming in with their egos checked. And that's the greatest thing about this Team USA team is that everyone is a star in their own right. Jewel Lloyd is a 24-point-per-game scorer. She's coming off the bench. Her ego's in check. She's just getting in where she fits in. Kelsey Plum, a former number 1 overall pick. Before Caitlin Clark showed up, she was a number 1 all-time scorer in the NCAA. She's checking her ego. She's coming off the bench as the 11th person off the bench, and she's fine with it. This is a team that is well-oiled, and they know what they have to get done, and that is to cruise into the gold medal stage.
And take a look here so far, Carlin. Record 3-0 for the women's team, 92 points per game, giving up 72, so roughly winning each by 20 points or more. And the one thing that I do like is sooner or later, we're going to get some of these hot games where they are going to shoot the three-point shot with lights out. It was finally good to see they were 9 of 21, which isn't electric, but 43% from three-point range going up against Germany. Moving forward, what can we anticipate from maybe the rotations for the Team USA women's basketball team here?
I think now you start to tighten it up, right? Like the next game is going to be the toughest game in terms of a team that's going to really get under their skin in Nigeria. Nigeria is going to pick them up full court. Nigeria is coming into this game knowing that they're the massive underdogs. Nigeria is kind of just happy to be there. They're the first African nation to make it to the quarterfinals on either men's or women's side. So they've already accomplished their goal. They're already, history's already been made for Nigeria. But this is a very physical team, and they're going to have to use that physicality because Team USA dwarfs them in terms of size. So expect the guards to see a lot of pressure. So Kelsey Plum, Sabrina Ionescu, Jewel Lloyd, Chelsea Gray, those 4 are really going to have to handle the rock and handle the pressure full court, because if they start to turn the ball over, that gives Nigeria a chance at least to keep it a little bit close.
The reserves were great yesterday in the finale of group play against Germany. Jackie Young, 19 points, a team high for the United States. 58 consecutive wins for Team USA women's basketball in Olympic competition dating back to 1992 in Barcelona. 25.5-point spread in favor of the United States against Nigeria in that quarterfinal matchup coming this week. Should be a great game. So Team USA women's hoops looking for its 8th consecutive gold medal. Team USA men's basketball looking for 5 in a row. A 21-point win over Puerto Rico on Saturday. The Americans clinched the top seed, now in the quarterfinal and knockout stages. When we look at what the United States have done on the men's side, Carlin, of course there is dominance, but the international gap has tightened ever so slightly. Covered against Serbia, the largest point differential against Nikola Jokic and Serbia in the opener, and then closer games perhaps, but still around a 20-point average margin of victory for Team USA in group play. What has stood out to you most about LeBron James and the Americans in group action?
I still think there's room for improvement. I still think there's another level that this team could get to on the offensive end. Defensively, I think they've been able to kind of turn it on and turn it off. You've seen in these games where they've hit the switch and said, all right, we're going to cut your water off. You're not going to score another point. We're going to go on this run. We've been able to see that on the defensive side of the ball. They haven't been able to click exactly the way that I've expected them to click on the offensive side of the ball. It's still kind of your turn, my turn offense. It's not as smooth as it should be with as much talent as there is on the team. So I expect them to get to another level, an even better level offensively. And to your point about the women's team not able to hit their threes, if Steph Curry finally makes a shot, like can we get the greatest three-point shooter of all time to hit a three? If he's able to finally make a shot, it's trouble, because once he sees one go in, it's going to be on a roll. And I called it out before the tournament started. I said, whatever the record is for most three-pointers in a quarter, most three-pointers in a game, it is in jeopardy, because I think Steph Curry is going to have one of those moments. It's his only Olympic Games he's ever been a part of. Steph Curry tends to give us one of those moments where he's like, all right, I'm here. I'm going to make it memorable. That hasn't happened yet. I expect that to happen at some point over the next 3 games.
We'll see if it starts in the next game, which will be tomorrow, Team USA versus Brazil, 3:30 start Eastern. That is a heavy favorite here, obviously, at minus 26.5 points here at the FanDuel Sportsbook, a total of 185.5. Carlin, we know a lot about Team USA. Talk to us about Team Brazil and what they can present going up against Team USA.
Listen, if you gave me the recipe for how to beat the Americans, it's these 3 things. You got to shoot the 3 ball well, you got to have guard play, and you got to rebound. Brazil has all those three things. They can shoot the three ball well. They shot 45% over the first 3 games of this tournament. They have guard play. Iago Santos, who comes off the bench. Think of him as Brazilian Isaiah Thomas. Not Isaiah Thomas Pistons Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas that finished in top 5 MVP voting with the Boston Celtics Isaiah Thomas. And then they rebound well. They have 2 bigs who can get out there and rebound well. Yes, Bruno Caboclo, 2 years away from being 2 years away. That was ages ago. He's here now. And he's on the international stage and can play well. This is an opportunity for him to remind everybody, hey, I can still play at a high level. He had a terrific game the last outing where he had 33 points, a double-double, and was unstoppable inside. So Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid going to have their hands full to get themselves in foul trouble. And their bigs, Leonardo Lendl, can stretch the floor. Team USA hasn't seen bigs can shoot the 3 yet. Brazil has 2 of them that could do that. So they have all the ingredients to actually get the job done. And in a 1-game scenario, I give them a chance, a fighter's chance at least.
26.5-point spread in favor of the United States. Tip is 3:30 p.m. Eastern time here stateside tomorrow. Carlin, one final minute here in this segment for the other 6 nations that have reached the quarterfinal round in the men's basketball tournament, facing off in the quadruple header tomorrow. Which matchups outside of Team USA versus Brazil catches your eye the most?
I have Australia. I know they're the underdogs in this one, guys. I have Australia beating Serbia. Yes, Nikola Jokic is spectacular, the best player in the world. Australia's going to come with a game plan, and I think they get it done and get back to the semifinals for the second Olympics in a row.
6.5-point spread, the shortest number. But, Carlin, outside of the Americans game against the Brazilians, 7.5-point spreads in every other game or less should be very competitive on the International Olympic stage now in the quarterfinal round. Carlin Gay of Sporting News joining us here on this Monday. Carlin, as always, we appreciate the time and the insight.
Likewise, guys. Have a great day.
Great having you here. Now, after the weekend in Major League Baseball, a reset of the pennant odds with a huge matchup this week in the NL. Up next.
Hopefully they learned their lesson. Hey, this ain't the NBA, bro. You don't have 6 fouls, and they will check you on this stuff. And Brooks has a reputation coming into this. You can tell the refs are watching them, and they were on him all the time.
This was 10, 12 years ago. Canada playing Greece with that type of lead that they had. They probably would have mentally crumbled and lost that game to Greece by 3 or 4 points in the final minute of that ball game.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Try and set the stage for what should be a great year of NFL action.
There's a handful of teams that potentially can compete for a Super Bowl championship.
Confusion and uncertainty this year more than some in the past.
This team looks like it's ready to make a move, but we just don't know if it's bad or good this year.
J.J. McCarthy is eventually going to take over, but it's like it's a no-lose situation for them.
I mean, they suck. They were 7-10.
Only on SportsGrid.
That race for the Cy Young, pretty much as equally compelling and intriguing as the race for the wild card spots in the National League.
And also keep in mind, this team doesn't pitch the entire season, so his ERA gets affected much, much more if he has a poor outing than, let's just say, Chris Sale or Zach Wheeler that's been there all season long. This would be a fun one to watch it play out, but the big loser last night were the Phillies and Zach Wheeler.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Their coach has a personality that is New York City. Tough, grinding, defensive, no holds barred. We muck this game up and we make you play it our way. And Tibbs has been rewarded. And he should be rewarded for what he's done with the Knicks.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Could we have just seen the final event for Simone Biles in her career in gymnastics at the Olympic Games? In the floor exercise final, she takes home a silver medal. Andrade of Brazil takes home the gold. Simone's fellow American, Jordan Childs, comes in third, earning a bronze medal. DRS, if that is it for Simone Biles at the age of 27, the longevity a part of her greatness as well. She will end with 11 Olympic medals in gymnastics, tied for the second most in the history of women's gymnastics in the Olympic Games. 7 gold medals to boot out of 11 total medals. We give it up to the GOAT in potentially her final day of Olympic action in her career.
Yeah, live it up. And the best part about this, too, is, like, let's just say you are going to go out in style. Like, gymnastics being one of the first competitions here, you can actually enjoy the final week of competition knowing that, you know what, I'm going to take in all the sights. I'm going to wear all my gold medals around because I really want to celebrate this if this is the last time. Now, typically, like a professional athlete, like, okay, I got to sit out 2-3 months, and again, I go towards my season. But the Olympics are only every 4 years, and that's hard to do. And it's crazy to think that you are in your prime in just about every other sport, but in gymnastics, you're sort of the old head at 27, which is kind of incredible. But my goodness, the longevity she's had, the dominance, and we can at least say, if you don't want to say she's the GOAT, which is ridiculous, you can easily say she's the most explosive gymnast we've ever seen here in our lifetimes, and well-deserved there, going out in style.
Doing moves that nobody has ever even thought of completing, so they're known as the Biles or the Simone. That is her impact on gymnastics. Now we go to Major League Baseball following the weekend that was. The week after the trade deadline, that was just 6 days ago. We set up the outlook for the run to October and earning playoff contention. The Yankees remain the favorites in the American League at plus 240, just 40 cents, though, in front of Baltimore at plus 280. Cleveland, a 6-1 number in third. The Guardians, the best record in the American League. The Astros and the Twins tied for that fourth best price at 7-1. 5 teams, Donnie, in the American League at 7-1. We'll show you the NL odds in just a moment. That has really been a 2-team race all year long. But there are 5 teams at 7-1 or shorter in the American League. Only 3 at that price or better in the National League. So we expect it to be highly, highly competitive for that American League pennant.
Yeah, and by the way, you are looking at those top 2 teams here. It's the Yankees and the Orioles, and rightfully so. Right now at the FanDuel Sportsbook, plus 240 and plus 280. I completely agree with that. I still think the Yankees have the slight upper hand here. I think they're going forward for the rest of the season as a complete team, just a little bit better than the O's. But that margin is close, and if you're telling me, hey, Don, I think the O's are going to win, look, there's arguments to be made for that as well. But if I'm looking in totality for the American League myself, Yankees, Orioles, clear-cut favorites here. Then, of course, Guardians, Astros, Twins, and Mariners. But if we're being honest, like if you are, I don't know, Yankees or Orioles fans, you expect to hopefully meet up, let's just say, in an ALCS at that point. But the thing that's going to happen here is, as we head down the stretch, right now it's a dead heat in the American League East. And why that is big? Because both teams can't win their division here. They're in the same division. So once you see the Yankees and the Orioles win, you might be getting a really nice price point on number 2, because the Orioles, let's just say at plus 280, they're still the second best team record-wise in the American League. They shouldn't be the second best team in the odds market because their path is going to be much harder, where other teams are going to have home field advantage against the Baltimore Orioles. So maybe if you're looking at a stance like, you know what, Donnie, I'm not ready to make a decision right now on who I think is going to win that division, Yankees or Orioles. But at the end of the season, let's just say the Yankees win it by 2 games or the Orioles win it by 2 games. I'm interested to see what that price point, not on the division champion, is going to be, but on the second place team, because you're going to get a much better price point. And for me, I do think it's far and away, Ben, in the American League. The 2 best teams are the Yankees and the Orioles, and I don't think it's particularly close.
I would have to agree with you, Donnie. You might be able to position yourself better in the playoff bracket, but I still think from the odds perspective, in the overall optimistic outlook, the Yankees and the O's a peg above. So let's talk about what we are seeing then in the American League postseason format. Of course, the expanded MLB playoffs. Here's where things stand in both leagues. 6 teams now qualify, the 3 divisional champions, 3 wild card teams. The top 2 teams get a bye into the division series past wild card weekend, which is a best of 3. Donnie, there has been that belief that the last few years in the expanded postseason, being in a wild card spot and playing right away actually might provide a benefit for how random baseball can be even in October. It's what we saw last year. The Rangers and the Diamondbacks, both wild card teams, making it to a World Series. Texas winning a World Series championship for the first time in organization history. So do not be scared if Baltimore relinquishes its lead in the American League East. The Yanks and the O's now tied for the top spot, but New York in front from the odds makers' point of view at a minus 150 price. Cleveland still 4.5 games up over Minnesota in the American League Central. Seattle a 1-game lead over Houston in the American League West. But when you look from the odds, that is the story. They're favorites, co-favorites right now, Seattle and Houston, to win that divisional title in the AL West. Minus 110 for the M's, minus 110 for the Stros. But look at what the odds are telling you. Houston a much better price at 7-1 to win the American League pennant than that of Seattle.
Yeah, because the pedigree is there for the Houston Astros. Been there, done that before. The Mariners usually that team like, we'll see what they can do in April, May, and June, and then typically fall by the wayside. But I did like the moves that the Mariners added to get a couple bats into that lineup, and it certainly helped them out. Had a nice series against the Phillies. Weren't able to scrape too much up yesterday against Zach Wheeler, but that's going to happen from time to time. But you are right about once you get to the playoffs and a team that's already playoff established, we call it that slingshot effect where, let's just say the Orioles do lose the AL East, but then head into the wild card round and win it. They're already in playoff mode. And that's also the same belief where if you have a team that's up 7, 8, 9, or 10 games with 2 weeks to play in the Major League Baseball season, taking their foot off the gas when another team is 2 to 3 games back of the wild card and makes it in to the playoffs, they've already been in playoff mode, locked and loaded, ready to go as the playoffs start. Because that tripping point usually comes in round number 1, and we'll see if teams handle it a little bit differently this year. But it will be fun to watch. I'm still going to stick with that prognostication that the Yankees are my team in the AL, and we'll see how it plays out that way.
You saw there, too, the Royals at 18-1, the Red Sox at 23-1, a $5 difference. KC a 2.5-game lead for the third and final American League wildcard spot at this moment. To the National League we go. Up next.
Hopefully they learned their lesson. Hey, this ain't the NBA, bro. You don't have 6 fouls, and they will check you on this stuff. And Brooks has a reputation coming into this. You can tell the refs are watching them, and they were on him all the time.
This was 10, 12 years ago. Canada playing Greece with that type of lead that they had. They probably would have mentally crumbled and lost that game to Greece by 3 or 4 points in the final minute of that ball game.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Try and set the stage for what should be a great year of NFL action.
There's a handful of teams that potentially can compete for a Super Bowl championship.
Confusion and uncertainty this year more than some in the past.
This team looks like it's ready to make a move, but we just don't know if it's bad or good this year.
J.J. McCarthy is eventually going to take over, but it's like it's a no-lose situation for them.
I mean, they suck. They were 7-10.
Only on SportsGrid.
That race for the Cy Young, pretty much as equally compelling and intriguing as the race for the wild card spots in the National League.
And also keep in mind, this team doesn't pitch the entire season, so his ERA gets affected much, much more if he has a poor outing than, let's just say, Chris Sale or Zach Wheeler that's been there all season long. This would be a fun one to watch it play out, but the big loser last night were the Phillies and Zach Wheeler.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Their coach has a personality that is New York City. Tough, grinding, defensive, no holds barred. We muck this game up and we make you play it our way. And Tibbs has been rewarded. And he should be rewarded for what he's done with the Knicks.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The National League pennant prices ahead of a huge midweek series that starts tonight out in downtown Los Angeles between the Dodgers and the Phillies. And DRS, when you look at these two teams right now, both have been struggling as of late, but the Phils even more so since the All-Star break. But really, for the last 2 months in Major League Baseball, it's been a two-team race atop the National League. The Dodgers still the favorites at plus 160, 70 cents in front of the Phils at plus 230. The Braves are there, and they should be, but I don't know anybody that is overly optimistic that Atlanta can surpass either the Dodgers or the Phillies in playoff contention or in those pennant prices. The other teams in the National League we'll get to in just a moment, but we start at the top with this midweek marquee series about to begin tonight in L.A. between the Dodgers and the Phils. The Phils avoid a sweep in Seattle yesterday. Zach Wheeler sensational, winning 6-0. The Dodgers won the final two games of their set against the Oakland Athletics to win the series against the A's, but did enter on a 3-game win streak in terms of that Saturday matchup against Oakland, a 3-game skid. So the Dodgers got off to a great start following the All-Star break, struggling a little bit more here in the last week. The Phillies just 4-11 since that All-Star break.
Yeah, and coming out of the break here, some of that momentum obviously lost between the two. But if we are looking at this series, how much is going to change the landscape? Because as we saw, the Phillies in their previous matchup against the Los Angeles Dodgers in Philadelphia ended up sweeping them. The Dodgers would love to return that favor. We'll see. But also, the Phillies got a big win yesterday. Not because we don't think the Phillies are going to another game the rest of the season. It's just the timing of it. You had such a devastating loss on Saturday night where it looked like you were finally going to clear that hurdle. And then Zach Wheeler to the rescue on Sunday, who was phenomenal. And then knowing that it's not as if you're going to play, again, the Chicago White Sox on Monday. Oh, we'll get back right. You're headed into Los Angeles, where that is going to be an unbelievable playoff atmosphere, and see who's going to be the best. Now, the Phillies might be looking at this year as going like, of course, I don't think we're going to sweep, but let's at least get one of these games here not swept by the Dodgers, because that really could turn a lot of things on their head.
Yeah.
The Phillies are a solid ball club. The Dodgers are a solid ball club. To me, two of the best teams in the National League, but as we pointed out multiple times, sometimes it's not how you're playing now, it's how you're playing down the stretch, because the other talented teams, I'm not worried about the Braves. I said it all season long. Still think they're going to be a playoffs. Just don't think they have enough talent to do a lot of damage once they reach the National League playoffs. The Milwaukee Brewers, Yelich in the back, the lineup sometimes questionable. But you look now at those teams out there in the NL West. The Dodgers, obviously, first and foremost. But now you're seeing the Padres with all that talent finally starting to turn it on. The Arizona Diamondbacks, who made the World Series last year, finally starting to play good baseball. Are those the teams that we worry about, where you say Dodgers, Phillies, skip over the Braves, skip over the Brewers, and then start to worry about the Padres and the Diamondbacks, because you'll have to play them in a wild card series? I don't think anybody wants to do that at this point.
Milwaukee, a 5.5-game lead in the National League Central. It would seem, as of this moment, as really has been the case all year long, the Brew Crew are going to be in the postseason. How much October noise they make, that remains to be seen. Right now, Philadelphia still a 1.5 lead over L.A. for what would be the number one spot in the National League playoff bracket. But those two teams earning a bye seems set as of this moment. Milwaukee not all that far behind, I guess you could say. But from the price perspective, how far back do we go? San Diego, as of this moment, 12-1 to win the National League pennant. The Diamondbacks, 19-1 to repeat as a National League pennant winner. The Padres, since the All-Star break, 11-3. Arizona, since the All-Star break, 11-4. Playing much better baseball at this moment and occupying two of those three National League wildcard positions.
Yeah, you're looking at those teams because you're trying to catch the lightning in a bottle, and it is going to change from week to week to month here. Phillies were the best team in baseball, then they look like the worst team in baseball. We'll see if they recover, but also more from a betting perspective. Sure, you want to take the Phillies and the Dodgers, still thinking the cream is going to rise to the top. But when you're just looking at price points saying, boy, the Padres are really good, and you look at their frontline starting pitching, their bullpen that they reamped up here at the trade deadline, and just the talent of that 1 through 9 this year, why not? Because they're taking a look at a 12-1 price. The Diamondbacks, who have the official caught lightning in a bottle team last year heading into the World Series. They're at a 19-1 price. Like, they're buyable numbers where you figure if they can make the playoffs, maybe they can do some damage. Because, again, just looking at the Diamondbacks, we're just lucky to be here. Last year we made it and got knocked. No, you made it to the World Series. And the Padres certainly have enough talent to make a deep run here. And also, if the Dodgers and or Phillies are faltering down the stretch, those are the two teams I'm aiming right now. That NL West, not the first place team in the Dodgers, but the teams behind them, they might be able to shake it up here in the NL down the stretch.
LA still a 4.5 game lead in the division, but it is getting much tighter. Hour 3 comes your way up next.